Acrylic charms are one of my favorite things to make, so I wanted to share a little bit of my process with everybody. I'm going to cover my process from start to finish, from the initial illustration to communicating with manufacturers and then to the final unboxing. Whenever I'm drawing, I always do two sketches, one that's really sloppy and then one that's a little more refined on top of it. For character figures, I usually like to block in shapes first with a big chunky brush and then figure out anatomy afterwards with a thinner and darker brush. It usually takes me a while to refine a face, especially if I'm drawing something based off of a real person or actor. I tend to do a lot of redrawing and repositioning. I also use a lot of photo references when I'm drawing. You can't see them in this video, but I promise that I do. I usually pull them up in split screen mode on my iPad Pro, which is what I'm drawing on in this video, or I pull them up on my computer if I don't want to waste room on my drawing screen. The sketch is all finished and it looks good to me, so now it's time to start the line art. When I'm drawing charms, I tend to use a thick monoline brush. I generally end up coloring in my line art, so I don't bother spending time on various line weights or anything like that, but this is just my personal style. Next begins the coloring process. First, I like to block in the full character using a neutral color like a dark gray and use it as a clipping mask layer. All the other color layers go on top of this and it makes it very easy to color within the lines, which is important to me because I like to be a little sloppy while coloring, but I also like to keep the drawing itself very clean. Like I mentioned before, I like to color in my line art to give it a lineless look. I do this by locking the transparency of my line art layer, and then going in and manually recoloring the lines. Some artists definitely have easier ways of doing the lineless style, but this is how I've done it for years, and honestly, I'm stuck in my ways. When I shade my drawings, I like to use a tapered brush, and I tend to use a warm color like a pink or a hot purple. I also sometimes use gradients to give it a bit more dimension. Highlights also always add just a little bit of a pop to a drawing, and I like to use very light colors, like a light yellow or even pure white. This acts like a pseudo edge light, which makes it look more appealing, in my opinion. I also like to add more subtle highlights to the eyes and hair, as well as any part that's particularly glossy, like the spoon and fruit in this example. Finally, I add a color adjustment layer just to make sure that all the colors mix well together. One thing that I always like to do is put everything on its own layer and also make sure to name every single layer. This was really drilled into me during art school, and I think it's a really important thing to do. So now that my artwork is done, it's time to go looking for a manufacturer. I use Alibaba to find most manufacturers for the most part because there are so many different options and so many different products to make. I found this manufacturer while I was looking for unique button shapes. I really love how these cat-shaped buttons are so round. I looked through the whole listing and decided that I definitely wanted to make some of these. This place also sells acrylic charms, so I decided that I wanted to make both shaped buttons and sparkly holographic charms from this company. At the bottom of the page, there's an option to send a message to the sales rep for more information, or for a personalized quote if you already know what you want. I went ahead and asked the manufacturer for a template for all the buttons initially, all the way back in October. I didn't place the actual order until a month later. I've never personally had a problem doing this, however. I sent the rep a complete list of everything that I wanted, including the size, quantity, which keychain attachment I wanted, and which kind of acrylic I want for each design. Sometimes it can be expensive buying things alone because a lot of deals are based on bulk ordering, so I did a group order with a few friends to make the order cheaper per person. Here, me and the sales rep have a bit of a back and forth where she confirms all of the order details, and then I say yes or no to them. And then finally, she sends a digital proof or mock-up of the files to make sure they look good. I look through everything and make sure everything is right, and then tell her that it looks good. Then I finally pay for the order and they're ready to start production. This manufacturer sends me pictures of the finished buttons and charms, but not every company will do this automatically. However, you can usually ask for photos before they are shipped out. Finally, the sales rep gave me a tracking number and my order is on its way home. Finally, FedEx has delivered my package. And yay, look, the buttons look great. Okay, so like 100 charms is way heavier than I thought it would be, but look at how good they look, yay! And here's the one that I drew earlier in the video. So sparkly, look at that. I've been making merch for a long time now, but it's always so satisfying to see a real physical product made from your artwork. Let me know down in the comments if you've ever made merch of your own art and how that process went. And please like and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more content like this. Thank you so much for watching!